Hi everyone, how you doing? Reverend Paul here from St. Augustine of Canterbury and the Sent, God's Church Deployed, with this week's message on the message from the truck. As you can see, I'm standing just outside the truck right now. You can see the door just behind me there. And I wanted to show you the scene that is in front of me right now because, as you can tell from this white fluff landing on my jacket, it appears as though we've had an early winter arrival here at the community of Windsor, the southernmost major city in the country, the place where we refer to ourselves as living in the banana belt, are seeing snow, and not only snow, but snow that's accumulating and sticking around. Hard to believe. I wonder if maybe this is one of those signs that Jesus is talking about in this week's gospel message. When we hear the message from Luke this week, we're going to hear Jesus talking about there will be signs that will tell us that the end of time is near. There are certainly some people who think that snow in November in Windsor is one of those signs. Now, I have no problem with snow, so you're not going to hear me complaining. But I know that those are some of those signs that people look for. This is one of those moments in life where we can say, wait a minute, is the end near? It's snowing in Windsor in November. Is the end near? No, I don't think so. However, if it were, who would we blame? Who would be to blame if we decided that this was a sign that the end was near? Well, I would argue that you could blame the people who were closing their pools at the end of August. That's right. My son Aaron was working for Erie Accent Pools this summer, and he was telling me before he went back to school in Sudbury in September, he was telling me that there were people that were already starting to close their pools in August in anticipation of the end of the season, the changing of the seasons into winter. We hadn't even gone into fall yet, and they were anticipating winter. You could argue that it was the churches that were at fault for this early snowfall because they were having their Christmas bazaars before we got to Advent. I say that jokingly because as I stand here, I can see the people going in and out of St. James Church as they celebrate their bazaar today. You could argue that it's the people that have got their Christmas lights up too early, and those Christmas lights up before the end of November or before American Thanksgiving or before Remembrance Day or whatever your day is, whatever your threshold is, you could blame them for all of this snow. There's all kinds of reasons why we can place blame on others for things going not in a direction that we want them to go. And those people sometimes have been referred to as being false prophets throughout history. If things aren't going the way we want them to be going, then it must be a false prophet who's declaring something wrong, who's declaring something incorrect, which has got God's wrath all up in a bunch. And here we are with snow in November. Jesus talks about those false prophets. He warns us to be careful that we don't listen too carefully, but that we look for the signs that will be coming to us, the signs that will be made clear to us as followers. And I think those of us who know to follow those necessary signs are smart enough to realize that from time to time those false prophets can really get in the way. I know for certain that people closing their pools and people having Christmas bazaars and people decorating their houses has nothing to do whatsoever with the snow that's falling in Windsor right now. We know that it's science. We know that it's atmospheric conditions. We know it's all stuff that has nothing to do with the actions of others. And yet, how often do we find ourselves getting caught up in moments where we like to blame others for things not going the way that we wanted them to go? Oftentimes, as Jesus shares with us, those false prophets that are declared sometimes end up being us. And we're the ones who are made to blame for something going wrong. And when you're to blame for something going wrong that you have absolutely no control over, you know that it is frustrating and just something that you wish would just go away. And yet, it still happens. Jesus says not to worry about those moments, not to worry about those times when we're accused of being a false prophet or not being accused of not proclaiming what the rest of the world wants to hear, because Jesus says that we are doing what we are called to do, and he will fill us with the words that we need in the time that we need in order to prove that what we are prophesying, what we are sharing, what we are celebrating is truth. Now, I don't want to get too far into that, because if I do, I'm going to mess up my sermon for tomorrow morning, and the last thing I want to do is give away all of the sermon in a message from the truck. But I do want you to think about, what are the false prophecies that you have learned to live with? What are those moments in life where we lay blame on somebody else for actions of our own, or actions that actually have no effect by any human being, but are just part of the scientific experience? I'm thinking of, how many times have you blamed that snowfall late in April because of the person that was raking their lawn before the snow was done? It happens in lots of places. But for right now, I think that's where I want to leave it. I want to leave it in that space where, how often do we find ourselves blaming someone for something, or finding ourselves caught being blamed for something that we had absolutely no control over? And how do we rectify that? How do we reconcile that in a place where we know that we're supposed to listen for the truth? I'll leave that with you, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, both at live service at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, in-person worship at St. Augustine, as well as at the 11:30 service of the Sent. I look forward to seeing you at one of those, hopefully, as we continue our journey with Christ. Just a couple of really quick announcements. First of all, celebration coming up next Sunday. Sunday, November the 20th, is the last Sunday of the church year. Reign of Christ Sunday, which means that we're heading into Advent. And Advent means we are preparing for our Advent study series, The Heart That Grew Three Sizes, a book by Matt Rawle, comparing our religious experience of Christmas and our life around preparing ourselves for the coming of Christ, and how the Grinch stole Christmas. Should be a really interesting study. Really looking forward to that. That's going to be happening on Tuesday evenings, starting on Tuesday, November the 29th. Now, Reverend Ryan is going to be running a youth event as well for those, and that's going to be happening on the Friday evenings. So that'll start, I guess that would be the 2nd of December. And we're also going to be kicking off that event with a dinner and a movie night on Saturday, November 26th. If you're interested in that, please let us know so we make sure we've got enough food for you. Of course, Advent is coming, which means preparations for children's pageants are coming. So for those of you who are young and young at heart, who might be wanting to be part of our online Christmas pageant again this year, make sure you let us know that as well, so we can add you to the cast, so that we can prepare that Christmas event for the entire community. I think that's about it for today. I know it's a little bit shorter, but hey, it's kind of looking like I might have to go out and shovel. So for now, I invite you on this snowy day, the first snow of the year, to be extra cautious. Keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down. I'm Rev'd Paul from St. Augustine, the Sent, and the Message from the Truck. Blessings to you all. Bye for now.